Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fake Love and Flying Monkeys podcast. My name's Nova Gibson and I am your host. My area of expertise is in supporting victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse and other toxic relationships. I'm the principal counsellor at Brighter Outlook Narcissistic Abuse Counselling Service, and I'm also the author of Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about everything from the initial pink cloud you find yourself on at the start through to the horrific discard and the powerful trauma bond that keeps you hooked. So take your imaginary seat on the roller coaster that is narcissistic abuse, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. One question I get asked, or it's more like a statement by my clients when they come to see me, is that the narcissist, well, they now know them to be a narcissist because they're trusting their instincts and they've done the research and they know they're the expert in their trauma. They say to me that, Nova, but they're so nice some of the time, most of the time. So shouldn't I just forget about those bad times? Or how can I make them change? How can I make them stop abusing me so that they can be that nice person all of the time? Now, when you hear someone say this and it's not you, it sounds kind of irrational, doesn't it? But in the context of narcissistic abuse, it's very, very normal. Now, to begin with, I want you to think of a loved one of yours, someone that you would protect with all that you have, and you would never befriend their enemy, and you would be so angry if someone hurt them. You would be hurt for them. I want you to think of that person when your loved one comes to you, if they did, and says to you, look, I know they have these bad points, they have this bad side to them, but most of the time they're really, really nice to me, and I just want to see the good in them, and maybe I can fix them. Maybe if I just try harder, then I can get them to see what they're doing, because I know deep down they're really a good person, because those other times that they're not being mean to me, they're being so loving, and it feels so good. What would you say to your loved one? Would you say, yep, that math adds up to me, as long as they're being nice to you at least 50% of the time, then you can overlook that other 50% of the time that they're abusing you? Of course not. And this is what I want you to say to yourself. It is so normal, irrational, but normal, given the context of your abuse, to look at the good times, which really are just days they're not abusing you, really aren't good times at all. They are just in stark contrast to the abusive days. I want you to ask yourself that question, and ask yourself whether you deserve more. But victims who have been conditioned to salivate literally over those breadcrumbs of love, in inverted commas, they rationalize away the abuse because of what we call a very powerful trauma bond and addiction to the chaos and the drama, and they become dependent on those breadcrumbs. So like any addiction, if you need that source of your addiction, whether it's alcohol or cigarettes or heroin, whatever it is, if you need that in your life just to feel normal, or you just need the breadcrumbs of it just to take the edge off the withdrawal, then you have to come up with ways of making the destruction it wreaks on your life not as bad as it is. You also have to remember that as a victim, you were conditioned over time very insidiously to normalize and minimize the abuse, and therefore those good times and bad times kind of blur together. That's just what your relationship looks like, and it only becomes really apparent that this relationship is toxic when the abuse starts to become overt and you've reached the level where it's impacting on you physically and it's affecting your job and you're suffering from anxiety and depression and all of these other debilitating symptoms of the abuse. So you've been conditioned to look at the abuse as just part and parcel of the relationship and to look at the abuse as not as bad as it is. These are survival instincts. So you can survive the abusive relationship that you probably can't even define as abuse. But getting back to the trauma bond, now, I have done another episode specifically on the powerful trauma bond that makes no sense to the outside world, let alone to the victim, where you literally become addicted to the roller coaster of emotions and chemical changes in your body. Now, if you are addicted to anything, let's make it not the narcissist and this chaotic relationship, this toxic, abusive relationship. Let's make it about gambling. Let's say that you're addicted to gambling and you're in withdrawal. You're craving a hit on those poker machines or the slot machines if you're in the States, and you'll do anything to get back on the machines because it feels so bad without the source of your addiction in your life. Now, addictions are not rational. We crave something that we know on a logical level is bad for us. But if we have to have that destructive substance or person in our life, then we have to make it okay and make the destruction not as bad as it is. Now, one way that we do that is to look at the destruction that it causes. So a gambler might say to themselves, oh, look, everyone's got a vice, and you know what, I got my bills paid eventually. Everyone has a debt collector knocking on their door once or twice in their lifetime. I only had to sleep in my car once. They will come up with all of this justification to get back the substance or the person when we're talking about the narcissist in their life, because the thought of being without that thing or that person is just too overwhelming, and the drug or the person and what we go through when we're losing all our money or we're being emotionally abused, that feeling is not as bad as the overwhelming feeling of being in terrible withdrawal. That just doesn't bear thinking about. So our brain has to come up with all of these rational thoughts, which aren't really rational at all, just to get our brain, our bodies back to a state of equilibrium and get rid of all those horrible chemicals that come when you're in cold turkey or you're in withdrawal from that which you've become addicted to. So now take that reasoning and apply it to the narcissist, where there's been these major highs and major lows and ups and downs and ups and downs, where the downs, the lows are so low that what you perceive as ups are just nothing at all. Maybe a day they bring you a cup of coffee without yelling at you. If you apply that same reasoning, then when you're looking at percentages, let's say that you have reason that they're nice to you 60-70% of the time, then what you're actually saying to yourself is that 30 or 40% of the time they treat you like dirt, remembering the lows are so low. But this is a person, right? And everyone has their flaws. And aren't we supposed to be empathetic and sympathetic? Well, yes, that's why you were chosen. But remember that 30 or 40% of the time, 50% of the time, whatever it is, you now know they are not isolated incidents of an unpleasant person having a bad day. They are consistent patterns of behavior over space and time, and they make you feel worse than any other person has ever made you feel. So when we're talking about love, love feels good. Love doesn't come from someone who has the capacity to abuse you for 30, 40, 50% of the time. Someone who is capable of doing that consistently doesn't love you. And that's a painful thing to come to terms with. And that is one of the major reasons we want to avoid that pain of thinking that this person doesn't love us, because that's easier than looking at this relationship as a toxic facade based on lies. We want to show compassion. We want to also remember the good times because they feel good. Now, this is another way our brain, which is wired for safety, not for happiness. I know that sounds strange, but safety in terms of getting rid of all those horrible chemicals pulsating through our body when we're in withdrawal. So our brain needs to get rid of those chemicals by minimizing that percentage of time when they're abusing you. Now, if you are looking at percentages, that is one of the biggest red flags that you will ever have, that you are in a toxic, abusive relationship, because people who love you don't abuse you, and people who abuse you don't love you. You would never pretend to abuse someone, right? That's just ridiculous. Of course you wouldn't. You have empathy, you have compassion. But someone who abuses you consistently, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of the time, that person pretends to love you all the time, and they're good at it. This is manipulation. It is not love. Love does not hurt. And once again, we're not looking at little isolated incidents from someone having a bad day and they're taking out on you, and then they feel remorse and they want to seek your forgiveness. We're not looking at that. We're looking at those consistent abusive behaviors that are destroying you and dismantling your personality and making you feel worse than you've ever felt in your life. So let's look at a couple of examples that explain the thought processes that people engage in when they're looking at percentages in terms of time they feel their partner, their loved one, in inverted commas, is treating them well, treating them nicely, compared to obvious percentages of time when they feel like they're being mistreated, or they feel like this person literally does not value them or respect them. So a typical example that I would hear from one of my clients who is still extremely trauma bonded to their abuser. It is early days and they are in withdrawal. They're distraught and they've been discarded by their abuser as they watch their abuser post happy snaps with the new target as if the victim never existed. So my client is distraught. They've been discarded and they are watching their loved one or the person they thought loved them. They're watching them on social media with the new target, and the pain of thinking about their partner, the narcissist, being with someone else is excruciating for them because they still cling on to that notion that the person who loved bombed them is the real person. And the thought of them giving that kind of love to someone else and someone else experiencing that feeling we now know is manufactured and not real, they can't believe that someone else will be in their place experiencing that kind of love with the narcissist. So they are distraught. They've had no closure and they've been left in a world of pain. But they talk to me about the fact that they can't stop thinking about the person they're now pretty sure is a narcissist. In other words, they're clinging on to the memories of the good times. So when I questioned this particular client about the good times, I said, describe to me the good times. What was so special about them? They said to me, well, I can't stop thinking about when we used to go grocery shopping. It was, fun talking to each other about, what kind of fruit and veg and meals we were going to have for that week, and me trying to get by on the money that I was given because I really, really wanted to respect that we had to have a budget. That was what was best for the family. But yeah, I really miss going grocery shopping and just having those chats as we are looking for our meals for the week. So as we spoke and my client started to reflect a little more and dig a little deeper, we discovered that the conversations that she missed and those good times, getting the groceries together, what the conversations entailed were about sticking to the budget and making sure that they didn't overspend, and thinking about what meat was on special and trying to buy the no frills, no name groceries. And it wasn't really a good time at all. And as we spoke a little bit more, she also reflected that there was no laughing, no cuddles, no touching, no catching up about what each other had been doing during the day. It was simply the only time that she got to spend with her husband, where most of the time he was in a good mood because he liked to budget and he wasn't abusing her. Another client told me about her version of the good times that she really missed with the narcissist in her life. And her experience revolved around sitting they're listening to some music, having a few drinks and chatting and laughing about what was going on in their lives, their jobs, and looking forward to that once a week, maybe a Friday or a Saturday night, I think it was. But then as we reflected more, or as she reflected more, she also remembered that most of those nights ended so badly, because inevitably her being able to laugh and enjoy the music and genuinely just experience happiness would make him mad. And every Friday or Saturday night, whenever it was, it would end badly. He would start an argument. And of course, that would be even worse. It would be a time that was even more volatile for him because there was alcohol involved. And these good times that she remembered, which were really only the start of the night before he became angry because she was enjoying herself, but not only because she was enjoying herself, but as alcohol does, it loosens the tongue. It loosens those inhibitions, and you feel more comfortable in expressing your feelings with someone that you know it is not safe to express your feelings with. So she remembered, with a little Dutch courage under her belt, she would actually speak about the fact that she was feeling disrespected about certain things and not valued in the house, but she was doing it in a way that she wasn't putting him down. She was just simply searching for a little acknowledgement and a little empathy, and they seemed to be getting on so well. But of course, as you now know, the narcissist, all they hear is criticism, and criticism to a narcissist is like throwing acid in their face. So once again, what she deemed as a good memory, which really just was the start of the night when the alcohol was, just starting to take effect, and she could, I guess, relax and loosen up a little bit. Those nights that she clings on to always ended, or normally ended, very badly with a rage, not an argument, because these are not communication issues, and they are not issues of a high conflict relationship. They're issues of abuse. They're not communication issues. So it wasn't an argument that ensued. It was a rage attack from the narcissist. And then she remembered chasing after him, asking him what she'd done, and trying to get back to the start of the night, which of course the narcissist had ruined. He put a stop to it there and then, and it was a setup. It ended in abuse. Now, I'm sure you will have your own stories. These are just a couple, but maybe you can find similarities in them. What I'm trying to express and get across to you is what I spoke about with my clients, and that the goal was for them to examine those good times that they're just ruminating about, they cling on to really reflect on those times and to think to themselves, were they good times? And 99.9% of the time, their idea of what is an amazing time spent with this person that they will treasure forever and they will miss desperately is just an everyday, perhaps boring day for someone in a healthy relationship, or simply just a day when they weren't being abused. They were so grateful for so little. They got by on the sniff of the breadcrumbs of love, which wasn't love. It was conditional love. But at those times that they weren't even pretending to love their victims. It was just a day when they weren't abusing their victim. But victims cling on to those times because those times are, as I say all the time, they're in such stark contrast to the rock bottom lows that they seem like gold. So both of my clients were able eventually to distinguish what their logical brain was able to define as just another Tuesday. There was nothing special about these times. They just appeared so good because the abuse stopped. The abuse was gone. That they got a reprieve from the abuse. And that's why these times feel so amazing to them. So when you are looking at percentages of time, as my clients did, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to reflect on the percentage of time that you think is amazing and that you think you will miss forever, and that it will just rip your heart into a million pieces at the thought of never being able to experience that with the narcissist in your life. I really want you to look at those times, write it down so it's tangible, it's on paper, you can see it, and ask yourself, what was so special? Because when I'm just beginning to get them to do this, I'm saying things like, wow, you are really caught up on these times. They must be pretty darn special. They must have been amazing to have the ability to, or the capacity to get you to override the abuse, or to be so special, so amazing that you can tolerate the abusive times. They must have been buying you diamonds and pearls and treating you like the beginning, like that love bombing stage was back with gusto. And of course, it was completely the opposite. They weren't being treated well at all. And that is what I want you to do when you're looking at percentages of time. Because when someone is abusing you, that's who they are. Remember earlier I said that people who love you don't abuse you, and people who abuse you don't love you. So when they're abusing you, they are also the next day or the next hour loving you, supposedly. They're doing a complete shape shift into someone who loves you, perhaps forgetting how they abused you an hour ago like it never happened, but you're feeling that you've got that old self back. You've got the person who loves you back. But the person who abused you is who they are. And the reason you know this is because people who abuse you pretend to love you. They have to, because if they're abusive 100% of the time, you would never stay. But people who truly love you unconditionally would never dream, let alone pretend to abuse you. So that's who they are, guys. So yeah, very important to remember when you're offsetting the abuse in the relationship by clinging on to remembering the good times and how special those times were. Now, I just want to talk very quickly about one way that the narcissist reinforces in you that you will look at those times that we now know are not good times, there's nothing special about them, that you will look at those times as being amazing, and you will miss them, and you will deem them as the good times in this relationship. One way they do this is through conditioning with those 3 magic words. I love you. Well, they're magic. They seem like magic when they come from the mouth of someone who truly does love us, and their words match up with their actions. Love is just a word, the most manipulative word in the English language when it comes out of the mouth of the narcissist. Love is just a word unless it is backed up with action. And we all know what should be combined with the words. Actions that make you feel good and would never seek to make you intentionally feel bad about yourself. So, getting back to the conditioning, the narcissist will say those words, okay, after a round of abuse. They will hit you, yell at you, scream obscenities at you, or cheat on you. They'll engage in the silent treatment, passive-aggressive, abusive behaviours. And when they're trying to hoover you back, perhaps you've pulled away and they need to bait you and pull you back in, they will say those 3 words. And then you will maybe sit around and watch TV and maybe lie with your head on their lap or on their shoulder, and these times will feel like gold, like heaven. Why? Because the abuse ended, and 2, because those times were paired together with the words or what you deemed to be the actions matching up with the words, such as going through a budget while doing your grocery shopping. You are conditioned to have those times that are just mundane, everyday times in a normal, healthy relationship. Those are paired together with those words, I love you. So you are conditioned to a lot of the time look at them as being special, loving times. They often come after a bout of abuse when they pull out those words, and what you think is something amazing seems like it's gold, like it's you're back on your pink cloud, but it's really nothing. It's just that it feels so good because the abuse has ended and because they've paired that together also with those 3 words. So their love is a response or a stimuli, I should say, that is paired together with those times. So you look at those times as being loving. Now, I hope that makes sense. We're kind of getting into reinforcement and those behavioral techniques and strategies here. But it's about having conditioned responses, such as feeling, loved, and your reactions brought out in you through those consistent behaviors by the narcissist, where they abuse you and then they make the abuse stop. There's no accountability. The abuse cycle just starts up again with the honeymoon phase, which starts with I love you. So just in summarizing, guys, what I really want you to take from this episode is that there is no percentage of time that it is okay for them to abuse you. It should be 0. So when you're asking yourself, or you're talking to someone like me or one of your friends, and you find yourself saying, well, 90% of the time they're actually really nice to me, remembering how we've gone over what nice means in these toxic relationships. If you find yourself coming up with a percentage, or they're really good 90, 80, 50% of the time, it's only 50% of the time that they're bad, but the other 50%, oh my goodness, that is amazing. And, I just don't want to be without that in my life, because it feels so good. So, maybe this is just as good as it gets. And, I've got to take the good with the bad. Well, no, you don't, because you've worked out that bad is consistent and it is abuse. They're not relationship issues. And once again, the percentage of time that someone should be abusing you is 0. It should always be 0. And that brings us to the end of yet another Fake Love and Flying Monkeys episode. I hope you found that episode insightful, guys. Do not look at percentages. If you're looking at percentages, that means there's a percentage of abuse, and there should be 0 abuse in a relationship with someone who loves you. Now, if you'd like to have a one-on-one counselling session with me, I am a professional counsellor here in Brisbane, Australia. I counsel people all over the world. All my sessions are online, so just see my website in the description. And guys, don't forget to get your copy of my best-selling book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, published by HarperCollins, available worldwide and available in Audible and Kindle. And I just have to say this because I've always wanted to say it is available in all good bookstores. Okay, other than that, guys, if you would like to support this channel, which I would be so grateful for, please share it. Tag your friends, share, so that we can spread the word, and of course give it some legs and get that algorithm working for us. Please share it and give it a rating and a review. And if you'd like to know what else you can do, then please consider buying me a cup of coffee. I've left the link below. On that note, guys, it's bye from me for now. Until tomorrow's episode, remember, you are worthy of love, and you are worthy of so much more than a lifetime of fake love and flying monkeys.